Well, we're obviously pumped up because we are nearing the end of our 72 Burning Questions season preview series. 64 Qs up on our investigation board and a whole lot of string. We're getting close to cracking this case. Yeah. We're not even going to have to watch the season.
Yeah, all these are completely right.
Yeah, once we figure it out. But we pick it up here. We have 8 questions remaining. We're at question 65. As we've been doing throughout these, we ask you to play along. Jump on Twitter. Hashtag the starters with your answers. All right, question 65. I know you'll have some responses out there. Who wins most valuable player? Let's hear it.
I think it's LeBron James. I think it's a perfect storm for him to win his 5th MVP title. And I'll tell you why. He hasn't won it the last 3 years. The guy that we all consider, except for you, the best player in the game right now, there's no voter fatigue at this point. Even though he's won 4, he hasn't won it in so long. He's going to be 32 when voting happens. I think he looks at MJ and the historical comparisons and says, I got to win one, before I get well into my 30s. The guys over in the Western Conference that are probably the other 2nd and 3rd best candidates or best players in the league, they're playing on the same team. So they're going to take away some votes from each other. And as far as the definition of MVP goes, many people define it differently.
Right.
Is it the most valuable player on your team, like a James Harden or a Russell Westbrook? If you define it as that, then you're not voting for Steph. You're not voting for KD. You're either voting for LBJ or you're voting for Russell Westbrook and James Harden. So I just think he'll get the votes this year that he needs.
You don't worry at all about LeBron playing even less minutes per game, taking off a couple weeks at a time, because we've seen, and it works, he doesn't need to play all 82 games for his team. He doesn't care if they're a 3rd, 2nd, 1st seed in the East. He feels pretty confident, again, as he should, that the Cavs are going to roll through anyone in the East and get to the finals. You don't think that could come into play because it has in years past?
That's a fair question, but I think he knows his body better than ever, and considering that he took 2 weeks off 2 seasons ago, he had to take them off. I think now he knows how to warm that body up and rev it up. So 2 weeks he took off 2 years ago.
Yep.
Then last year it was 76 games he played.
That's true.
So I think that'll increase. I don't think he's going to play any less games than that.
The key thing you said is you think if LeBron wants to go get number 5 and get closer to MJ and Kareem and those guys, that's different than him not wanting it and just hoping to get another Finals MVP and another championship. It's whether he wants it and whether he cares.
And what happened last year when Steph got it?
Yeah,
he made a few little comments.
Good point.
I mean, he said that Steph deserved it.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, and words get twisted by what these guys say all the time. And he said, hey, Steph, he deserved it, but when you talk about most valuable, then you can have a different conversation. So take nothing away from him. He's definitely deserving for that award, for sure. He got killed for saying that. He does obviously look back and think, or look at the league, the landscape, and think he's the best player, as he should. And so
most of these guys do.
Yes,
your upper echelon guys.
Well, so does J.R. Smith. So does everybody. And he probably wants this one. It just feels that way.
I think he definitely wants it because I think he might have felt slighted those last couple of years, especially because now he has got the championship to prove it. He also might have the sympathy of the voters who overlooked him in the last couple of years.
I think that's fair.
Because he has been so good and so consistent for so long, you take it for granted.
We moved on too fast.
We did, and I think now, because he's been the villain for a long time, now there's a brand new, big, fat, juicy villain. He could be the guy who just benefits greatly from that. Also, the Cavs are guaranteed 55 wins no matter what. So he's going to have the wins. Some of the other players in
the seeding probably.
Yeah, and some of the other guys in that in the MVP chat might not have that many wins. Some of them, perhaps Russell Westbrook, for example, he's a guy who they might start off great, but if Russell has, for example, a huge load to carry, that might catch up with him later in the season.
So you guys both go LeBron.
I'm going LeBron.
You go with LeBron as well?
No, I'm choosing my beard father, James Harden. I think we can all agree last year, definitely a lost season for him and the Rockets. Harden reportedly shows up out of shape at camp after an ankle injury in the summer. Whatever beef he had with Dwight Howard led to a lot of turmoil in the locker room. Their coach was fired. Just a disaster all around. But I think that's actually good for this year because to me, Harden is at his best when there's been a ton of doubters around him. You look at the 2012-13 season. Nobody knew if he'd be a great number 1 guy, and he comes out and he was excellent for the Rockets. The next year gets killed for his defense the entire season. So 2014-15 comes back, has the best season of his career. Second in the MVP, won the Players MVP, and then last year, as we know, was not great. He has a lot of people to prove wrong. I think he's got a great new coach next to him in Mike D'Antoni, who's going to be able to craft a perfect system around him. The players they added are going to be a bit better help to him this year. They just fit really well. But the main reason I'm picking him is because I'm sticking to my guns. Here's what I had to say about James Harden way back in April.
Rockets, finally done. We can stop talking about the Rockets for a little bit. Trey, time for one more headline.
James Harden MVP next season. You heard it here first.
Oh,
This has been a 6-month-long campaign, and the season hasn't even started. But I'm expecting a big season from James Harden. 29, 6, and 7 last year. Didn't even make All-NBA.
in a down year.
Yeah, no
what's
doubt.
crazy,
And if he
isn't it?
does that again this season on a better team, if they win another 10 games, if they're in the 50-win range, I think he's definitely going to be in the mix. He's going to be doing so much for that team.
But you got to be a top 2 seed. I mean, the last 30
Maybe.
years, there
Agreed.
really hasn't been a third seed that won it other than MJ, and that was MJ towards the end of his career. So he's got to win a ton. Are they going to win more games? The Warriors, the Spurs, Clippers, even. That's the problem. That's
that's
You're right.
definitely the problem.
When you look at MVP, I do agree with you. You need almost like the 3 ends, if you want to call them that. You need the narrative, or at least it helps having the narrative. You need numbers in terms of your statistics, and then you need that number 1, usually that number 1 or number 2 seed, at least in your conference. But that's why I go with Russell Westbrook, and that last one's going to be tough. But the first 2, Russell Westbrook, check and check.
Yeah.
I mean, the narrative is set up for Russell Westbrook to be an MVP favorite. Kevin Durant leaves him, sends him one text, goes and joins the supervillains out there in Golden State, and now it's Russell Westbrook to try and carry the load, which he's even had some success and some experience doing when Kevin Durant was out injured and put up unbelievable numbers. The numbers are going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, 30, 10, and 8 is in play with Russell Westbrook, with the usage rate that he's going to have and the load he's going to have to carry. Could he even average a triple-double over a season? Very, very possible.
Yeah,
and that is why I think the narrative and the numbers, because I don't think they're going to be a number 1 or number 2 seed in the West, but those could be enough if you average a triple-double and you got that unbelievable narrative and you get close to 50 wins. That, to me, is enough. That would do it. I think people would vote for him then.
I mean, he might also have the sympathy vote as well because Durant left him.
Of course. That's the narrative. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, Durant left and you've still been able to get that team up there. The biggest task is, like I said earlier, can he maintain that pace and that high intensity level for an entire season? We know he's only got one speed, that's 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But if he gets an injury perhaps or he slows down or something like that, then it could just affect his candidacy.
I think he's going to want to get his guys going for the first couple months. I think he's want to show the entire league, hey, I'm not a selfish player.
Yeah.
He's got something to prove.
I'm going to get a lot of assists each and every game. All these guys are great candidates, and we haven't even spoken about Kawhi Leonard. I think he's the scary candidate, quietly working, not going to his San Diego State Hall of Fame induction because he wants to play in a preseason game. He's just working his butt off. And he kind of had a quiet exit in the playoffs last year. He's scary because he does it on both ends. They're going to win. They're my pick for the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, so they have that going for them. I think the Warriors' number, as far as their win number, isn't going to impress anybody because they won 73 last year. So that kind of, knocks down Durant and Curry to me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of look, even with Westbrook and Durant, we saw at times them sort of splitting the votes.
Yeah.
Both guys were top 5 guys, but not enough to get number 1. So, okay, let's go over who we picked for MVP. We have Tass and Lee going with LeBron James. Trey, you got Big Beard, James Harden, and I will go with Russell Westbrook. As I said, the Thunder have to have an unbelievable year, and when I mean that, it's got to be 50 wins or so for him to actually take it home. Let's hear from you guys, though, on Twitter when we come back.